In order to make a decision to invest in nursing homes in Spain, which elements we should take into account?
Well, I think basically there are four of them, because it's demographics, it's economics, it's social policy, and also existing competition.
You haven't talked about a pandemic. We've been having some issues lately. Has no effects?
Well, it does really, but it does when it happened. I mean, the pandemic of COVID-19 was really horrible in Spain, and it affected very heavily on Spanish nursing homes. They really paid a very heavy toll, and around 20,000 people died in nursing homes during the pandemic. But even though that was horrible and that caused a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, and many relatives who survived still remember with pain the relatives who died, it is something that it will not affect the nursing home industry in the long term. Then the trend on demographics is so large towards the aging of the population that it is something that will be, sadly remembered, but it will not affect in the long term.
Can we say that it's a good moment to invest in nursing homes in Spain at the moment?
Well, it really depends on what I said, those four elements: demographics, economics, social policy, and the situation of the competition.
So let's go and study each of these elements, shall we? Let's start with demographics. As we know, in Spain now we have almost 20% of people that are older than 65 years old, and we have almost 7% which are older than 80 years old.
Well, that's absolutely certain, but if we see it from that point of view, we are looking to a picture. But if somebody is willing to invest in the Spanish nursing home industry, either building a nursing home or buying an existing nursing home, maybe it's even more important to see the trend. If we go back in time 30 years to 1980, it was 10% of people who were over 65 in Spain. Now, as Anna has said, it's like 19.6 or 20% are over 65, but in 2050 it will be 1 out of 3. So it will keep increasing. And that would mean that nowadays, today in 2021, there is 9 million people over 65 in Spain. Among them, 3 million people are over 80. But if we travel in time forward and we go to 2050, it will be 16 million people over 65. If we see this graphic that we are showing on the screen, we see this evolution. And we see that the bars on the dark side of the bars represent people between 65 and 79. We see how much the amount of people over 80 are going to be increasing in the next years. And even once we reach the peak in 2050 of people over 65, we will still have plenty of people over 80, which are the ones that will end up needing support that will require nursing homes.
Josep, I know that you have this rule of thumb, which you call one of every 3. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, that's something that, it's just, as you said, a rule of thumb that you find in reality, that it's, you take a group, and 1 out of 3, if you take a group of old people, will have a certain profile that will require certain services. Let me explain. In Spain, today, there are 47 million inhabitants. From them, 9 million people are over 65 years of age. 1 out of 3 are dependent, meaning that they require some level of support to do what we call daily activities. That would be around 3-something million. 1 out of 3 of those will need a strong support or a large amount of support. That would be 1 million, something like that. And 1 out of 3 will need to live in a nursing home to get the service they really require. That would be like 360,000, something like that.
One question here. The World Health Organization has also a rule that says more or less that you need like 5% of you need 5% of places for older people, for people older than 65 years old. Which relation there is with this rule of thumb that we just talked about?
Well, yes, the World Health Organization has said it several times that 5% of the population over 65 would live better in a nursing home than in the usual environment, the previous environment. But if we applied that rule to the Spanish situation, that would mean that we would be needing 400,000, between 400 and 450,000 beds or places in nursing homes. If we take that proportion to 2030, we would be, since we will be going from 9 million to 11 million, we would be needing almost 1/3 more of places. We will end up needing in the following years to double the amount of nursing homes and nursing home places that we have nowadays. So right now, the amount of nursing homes in Spain, we have 381 places or beds in nursing homes. That means 4.4 beds for every 100 people over 65, which is a little bit under the 5% that the World Health Organization requires, and which is about the rule of thumb amount that we said before. But as population age increases, the need or the demand for nursing homes will increase very much in the following years.
Summarizing, now there is a lack of places in nursing homes, yes, now, but now if we look at it in 10, 15 years' time, we see that we will need the double places that we have now. Therefore, there is a big challenge in Spain at the moment to fill in all these needs that the population will have in the next years. Let's talk about now the economics. Josep, I would like you to walk us through the disposable income of the older people in our country.
Okay, but let me just use a little bit of time explaining one thing that is different between Spanish nursing homes and nursing homes in other countries. I mean, when you travel around, you usually see that when you ask how much is a nursing home, they will tell you, okay, the rent of the place is this amount, and then services is another amount, and sometimes maybe medical services is another amount. And when you put it all together, that adds up to the whole sum that you pay to be in the nursing home. In Spain, we are not used to that system, and when you go to a nursing home, usually you agree on a full price that will include everything. What is everything? That would be like a 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, full hotel service. Then it will be support for your daily care activities, your daily life activities. Then there would be the organization of activities within the nursing home, both individual and group activities, and also the support to the the public health service, meaning that everybody in Spain has the right to get a health service from the government, from the public service, and the nursing home will give some support to that public service. And the average price of a private nursing home in Spain is 2,000 euros, including everything, even VAT, which is 10%. So what I'm saying is the economic side is very important because it's a very intense service, but the price is only around 70 euros a day, which could be considered low if you see all the services it's providing, but from another point of view, it's a high price.
Clearly, 2,000 euros a month, it's a high price if we take into account that the average retirement pension in Spain is just 1,166 euros. Which other solutions can you find here?
Well, absolutely. If we see this map of Spain that we are showing right now, we see that it's not only that the average retirement pension is less than 1,200 euros a month, but it's not evenly distributed in Spain. We see just in the middle, Madrid, and in the north part, in the Basque Country and Asturias, it's much higher. But if we see on the left, like in a very light color, Galicia or Extremadura, it's much lower. So if people would pay the nursing home they need with their pension, very few people would be able to pay it. But the truth is that many Spaniard people who are retired have saved during their working lives. They have saved, they have created like pension funds or other ways of saving money. And the main way to save money is to buy real estate. I mean, buying a house, buying an apartment. We are showing a graphic right now that shows that 78 of retired people in Spain own a home and have no mortgage on it. So if we add up, we can say that, okay, the pension is not too high, but people have saved, and the way they have saved basically is through houses, through real estate.
As we have seen, we have assets. Therefore, we have now new models, financial models that are popping up. And I would like you walk us through which are the most interesting ones at the moment.
Well, yes, as we just described, Spain is a country where many old people own assets, but they don't have cash, or they don't have enough cash, many of them. So now financial institutions started creating some years ago, importing, or generating new systems or products, financial products addressed to liquidify the asset. I mean, convert your asset into money so you can pay the nursing home or have another expenses. So now there's the possibility of selling the asset, of course, and getting maybe a wholesome amount, or getting a pension, a life pension that has existed for a very long time. Now there are reverse mortgages, which is something that didn't exist in Spain until maybe 15, 20 years ago, but it's not too common, but it exists, and there are several banks and financial institutions that are commercializing some kind of reverse mortgage. And then there's something that's purely Spanish, which is Pensión. It's a Spanish company that has created a way in which you can use your asset, your real estate, within a product that involves renting and not losing the property. So I think that that's something that is very important when you want to invest in a nursing home in an area, that you're trying to find the data, to find what is the average pension, what is the number of people who own houses of apartments, and also if there are those financial institutions offering those services in that area, because that's the difference between people being able to pay for the service they need or not.
Which effect has the social policy in our decisions?
Well, that's very important. And when we talk about social policy, we have to focus in the country where we are going to invest, or in the region where we are going to invest. And we need to separate what is the need from nursing homes. We've been talking about that 5% of the World Health Organization, but we need to know about the demand, the real demand, meaning when we say 1 out of 3 people will need a nursing home, will they be able to pay for it, or will there be anybody willing to pay for it and able to pay for it? That's when social policy enters into effect.
Therefore, when we're talking about demand, we're talking about need plus economic capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that economic capacity depends on each individual, but sometimes it depends on social policy. I mean, if we're going to invest in a country or in a place, as I was saying, it's very important to know if they have some social policy, meaning that somebody who needs to go into a nursing home but cannot pay for the service he or she needs is going to be able to get it financed by the administration. There are several ways in which the administration cooperates with private companies and private entities in Spain when providing services that take place in nursing homes. We're going to talk about them in other videos, which is concierto or private management of public services. But what is very important is to know what does exist in the place, in the area where we are going to invest. And that's absolutely different. Even though Spain is one country, there are 17 autonomous communities, which means 17 different regions with 17 different legislations, requirements, and funding. So it's not just about Spain, it's about where are we going to invest in Spain, and not having the clear idea can be the difference between success or failure.
As Josep said, we have 17 regions, but there is one law that came into effect in 2007, which is the Statute of Dependency. But each region has, during these 13 years, has defined its own rules into it. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, yes, that's something that we sure need to investigate and to look very closely if we want to invest, either buying or building nursing homes in Spain. Yes, there is one law. It's called the Statute on Dependency. It has a very much longer name, but what it says is that every Spanish citizen or people legally living in Spain who is dependent, meaning it needs support to do the daily activities, has the right to receive either some money or some services. That doesn't mean that the service they are going to receive is the same all over Spain or the amount of money they are going to receive. It means you have the right to get something. Sometimes you have the right to stay in line until there's a place for you to go into a public place or into a private-owned but publicly financed nursing home or daycare center. Right now in Spain, around half of the nursing home places receive some kind of public financing. Maybe they are fully public, or they are public, but they are managed by a private company and they still public, or they are conciertos. It's some kind of public financing of private homes. But it would be very, very important for us, if we're going to invest in Spain, to go to the region and trying to find what they call the territorial planning, meaning what does the administration of that particular region thinks their needs are going to be in the next years. Almost all regions produce those documents, and they are very important because they can give us hints on whether they are going to invest in an area or in another area. We could get something similar just looking at the graphics, but it is much more secure to go to the public data and knowing how they are going to invest in the next years. And also, it's very important, something that we won't get from the law, to know not just the requirements, not just the financing, meaning how much are they going to pay per day or per month, but also how long do they take to pay. Because some regions in Spain are good payers, they pay maybe in 30 days, maybe in 60 days, but some other regions are not such a good payer. So you render a service, you give a service, and it may take maybe 90 days or maybe 120 days to get paid. That's something that's very, very important, meaning we have to look very much in the detail on how the administration works, what public policy is in the area.
I know you said that you talk also about the cost of not working with the administration. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, that's very important because we'll talk about it in other videos, but the idea is that when you need a nursing home and you look for a nursing home, usually it is not you who need the nursing home who will end up looking for it. Usually in Spain there are relatives who are doing that job and who are going to the administration to do all the red tape, and they are going to if they can pay and they are willing to pay, who are looking for a nursing home. Sometimes when we are investors and people, managers of nursing homes, we may think, okay, we are going to offer a service that is much higher than the service that the administration offers in public nursing homes or in private, publicly financed nursing homes. But, and we may decide we don't want to cooperate with the administration, we don't want to have any public finance places in our nursing home. But we should think that many people who buy a place in a nursing home, they are not thinking about themselves, they are thinking about their relatives. And if we offer a service that is so much more expensive than the publicly financed one, there may be people that will end up just being in our nursing home just when they are waiting in line, and as soon as they can get a financed place, they will move. That is something that has happened. Of course, you can change during the process, but changes that have not been thought before may end up being very expensive.
Let's talk now about the competition, because before making any decision, we need to know who is in the market. Also, taking into account nursing homes, it's the geographical part which is very important, because, for example, myself, I would never take someone of my family more than, say, 50, 60 kilometers away from my place. What do you think about it?
Well, 50, 60 kilometers is just a very wide limit. And let's say that when we invest and when we talk about the competition, we need to create a geographic area. And we have to know whether people are going to be willing to go farther away, maybe to get better prices or maybe to get better service. But that's not something that will be equally spread all over the country, so we will need to analyze. It's not that important if we're going to take economic decision, investing money, building or buying a nursing home, how many homes there are in the whole Spain. But I'm going to talk just a little bit about it. In Spain, there are around 380,000 places spread among 5,400 homes. But they are not very similar one to each other. Now we're going to show just a little graphic to show you the size. And we see that around half of the nursing homes and beds within nursing homes are in homes with more than 100 places or 100 beds. And only 4% are in places under 25. If we were talking like 30 years ago, around 60% of places were in nursing homes with less than 25. So it has changed. The industry, the sector has changed a lot during the last years. And another thing is that we are talking about 17 regions, 17 autonomous communities, and the profile differs is very different between one and the other. So the first thing we need to know is how is that sector in the area where we are. When we want to get the data, we should go first to Inforesidencias.com, which is a website which specializes in nursing homes, but also we can go to the public administration, to the regional administration, and get the census of the nursing homes in the area where we are going to invest. Usually it's not too easy to get it, so they will give us a lot of data and we'll have to go through it and just pick the data we're going to be needing. And just to make just a map of how things are, we'd say that around 25% of beds in nursing homes belong to the administration. They are publicly owned. Some of them are privately managed, but they are publicly owned. And then, if we take just the private nursing homes, around 34% of the beds which are in private nursing homes are financed by the administration, directly financed. If we add up everything that's public, we will end up having 1 out of 2 beds that are publicly financed, either because they are public or because they are financed by the administration. If we take another step, we see that there are private companies that are for-profit and non-for-profit. 1 out of 3 of companies or private institutions are non-for-profit. And something that people are worried about, especially after the pandemic, people were worried that funds are investing in nursing homes in Spain. Well, around 8% of the beds in nursing homes belong to companies that are owned by a fund, and also 5% are owned by companies that are in the stock market, And 11% of the beds are in nursing homes that belong to companies that are not Spanish. That is like a little map of the nursing home industry.
Then we also have to take into account that the geographical distribution of beds is extremely different from not just for each region, comunidad autónoma, but for each province inside those regions. For example, if we go back to this percentage we were talking about, the percentage of beds for people over 65 years old, we are talking, for example, provinces like Soria, Guadalajara, or Palencia go up to 7%. But when we see others like Murcia or Alicante or even the Canary Islands, there is only 3%. Therefore, we can see that there are big differences. Should we invest in these areas where we know that there are less beds per inhabitant?
Well, that takes us back to the beginning of this video when we were saying there are 4 elements or 4 factors that to take into account. Demographics is one of them, but it may be misleading if we would just take that one into account. For instance, if we talk about the Canary Islands, the fact that there are 7 islands in the Canary Islands could mislead us because it's not the same to invest in Tenerife, where there are several million inhabitants, or if you invest in La Gomera, when there are very, very few. Also, if you go to some parts of central Spain, from rural Spain, the population is very spread, very thinly spread in the land, in the territory. That means that if you go to a province like Soria, you may find that they have 7% of beds taking into account people over 65. But maybe you can go into an area of Soria where there is still demand. So it's not very well spread. The idea is that you cannot just take one of the 4 factors into account. I think you should take all 4, put them together, and of course, there's always an element of risk. But I think that if you see all 4 elements that we've mentioned, then you can take a wise decision. And the most important is demographics, not just the picture, but the movie. How is demographics going to be in 10, 15, or 20 years' time?